Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Metal Magdalene with Jet right here on Metal Messiah Radio. This year has seen the releases of many new albums from great bands, and in April, Dutch metalers AntropomorphiA will be releasing their album Merciless Savagery off of Metal Blade Records. Today we have with us Ferry Damen of the band as our guest to tell us about it. Welcome back to the show, Ferry.
Thanks very much, and thanks for having me.
So Ferry, the band was formed 30 years ago. You guys reunited like 10 years ago and have been going pretty strong ever since. How would you say that the band has progressed throughout the years?
I think when we started off, we were still very much set in our origins. So it was a lot more death metal based, and that slowly evolved to our more own recognizable style that we are now. And I think we really defined the band for where we're at this point in time with Sermon of Rot, and continued that with this album. And I think, it's safe to say that that are the two albums that really represent where we are now in this day and age.
And you know, Ferry, the world is, in general, a very different place than it was when the band first started out. I mean, over your career with the band, have you ever had any, incidences where you were not able to play, due to content of your music or your imagery or anything like that?
No, not really. We in the early years, we mostly played Holland, Belgium, and sometimes Germany. But Holland is very liberal towards these kinds of things, so we never encountered anything like that. The only thing that we got thrown at us was the German ban for the Evangelium album. But other than that, everything was very smooth ride. We had a couple. I can remember one time we played in a community center, which was also a church, and there were some people outside with some cardboards and protesting that we were playing there. And there was some article in the newspaper, but nothing really exciting.
Well, that's pretty good for as long as the band has been around.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about your stage production, and is it important to you to have a strong stage presence?
Yeah, well, as much as production goes, we just go out there and give it our all. When we play live, we all demand 400% of us, focus, determination, and the will to, get the fans or the people at our side, so to speak. We want to convince. We want to have the people, when they go home, have the experience and the feeling that if they don't know the band, they have to, that they want to discover or look up the band on Spotify or whatever that is. And just deliver the brutality that's the atmosphere that's on the records, and to get that across.
Last we had you on was in 2017. So what has the band been up to, over the past couple of years?
We played some significant festivals. We played Roadburn, we did Brutal Assault, we did Summer Breeze, I believe. We had some great festival experiences. But other than that, we try to select and be very cautious in not overplaying, especially here in Holland. Mm-hmm. And working on music, because for some reason it's still very hard to get your name on one of those festival posters. It's just as hard as it was when we were starting out. So for that not much has changed, so to speak.
And why do you think that is, Ferry?
There's so many bands out there, there's so many good bands, but festivals rely on the bands that get people out there to come.
True.
And the risk of getting a new band on your poster, some festivals do that. They go for the newer bands, and we're not that new, but since we came out of our hiatus, to most of the people we are new.
True.
So it's I don't know why they think it's a risk or why they don't do it. If you look at the bill of the biggest festivals, there's maybe 3 or 4 small bands that are relatively new, and the others are just the White Snakes and the Kiss, and go on from there. There's a couple of bands that are, but they're already big.
Right.
It's not like when I was young, you go to a festival and you discover bands.
Right.
There was one main act, and the others, it was more of a display of what's out there than what's out there, and you have to deal with that. How many times Behemoth has visited this country in the last 2 years? That's a lot, even for a big band.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, people want to have their seats filled, and that's
True.
probably why.
You're probably right on that. Well, you guys got a new album coming out, Merciless Savagery. So how would you describe the making of this record, Ferry?
Difficult from time to time. It was a longer process than we anticipated. We were, we tried to have the album out last year, and then finished recording in August, and have the album out in October. But things didn't go as smoothly as we thought. And then when we started the recording process, I'm always writing songs, but at some point you sit down and talk to each other and say, okay, well, what are we gonna do with the material? I'm gonna make an album of it, and when you make a planning. And the first 2-3 songs went very quickly, so we were on the impression that we could finish this album really quick. But then things didn't go as smoothly as I anticipated. So 3 months of time for recording guitars turned into 3, and same goes for all the other stuff. It was a very a difficult process as that goes.
How do you go approach then writing this album in particularly musically then? Do you have, like you said, you had to keep going back? Do you come back with different songs, or do you keep changing the music? How did you go about writing it musically, Ferry?
Well, when I start with a blank canvas,
Mm-hmm.
and all its predecessors are the main ground to build upon. But for me personally, Sermon was the main pillar to expand upon, and you start from there. But I don't sit down and go like, okay, I have to write type A or a type B song.
Mm-hmm.
Inspiration comes out in different ways, and it most of the time comes from instinct and emotion. So you don't know how things are going to sound until you hit those first riffs that you think are good enough to be on an album. And when you have those riffs, you start to expand and try to arrange a song out of it. But sometimes you just have the riff, and it takes months to get to that point that it will turn into a song. You can't force that. It's a natural and an honest process. So everybody that I talk to tells me it's a very dark and atmospheric album.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great to hear, but it's not planned.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we record and write is deliberate, but it's not determined what it would become. I wish I could do that, but that's unfortunately not the case.
And then, so what about lyrically then, Ferry? How do you go about gathering your inspirations, or however you want to put it, for lyrics on these songs?
Well, I started with more personal topics on the previous album, Sermon, and I really continued that on this album.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said in the previous interview, I really don't explain my lyrics because I don't want to take away the interpretation of the listener. But for me, the lyrics are very much a part of the music. Most of the time, when we have a song, the topic of the lyric comes out of the music, and it kind of is. It's like a patch you walk upon, and it leads you towards what you want to have out there. It's not something you can explain like, well, you do this and you do that and then you have that.
Right.
It's also a thing what comes with emotion and a lot of personal stuff these days.
And now, once again, you guys recorded at your drummer's Marco's studio, who also created the band alongside with you. Does this make the recording process a little bit less stressful for you all and easier to more concentrate on the task at hand?
Well, before we start recording, then it's all a very, loose process where I write the music, then I send the demos to Marco. He composes his drums and sometimes arranges the song differently. We talk about it. We have if necessary, a discussion on how to do certain things. And that whole process before we start recording is very loose. But then we decide to record the album, and you go into planning, like I said, and you talk to Metal Blade, and you tell them, well, we want to have what do you think? How's the calendar looking like? And they come up with a few dates for the release. We pick out a release, and at that point, that's still like 8 months away. And then I get comfortable with that idea, and I'm self-critical. So not every riff makes it, and I think I have time enough to compose that. And then, like I said, you hit a bump in the road, and things started to pile up. So eventually, when you were recording, there's this pressure because you have to finish it before the date.
Right.
And we did this album, Metal Blade even offered to postpone. But we say, fuck it, we're gonna record it because we want to have it out. We need to finish this album. We can't wait another 8 months to have this because I will. I think I will. If that was the case, I will continue to work on the songs, and that's not always a good thing, So we decided, well, let's just do it, and we were better under pressure. When you have to do this. Although for me, it's a lot more easier than for our drummer who has a regular job on the side, so he has to mix and do all that production stuff in the evening and in his weekends. So for him it's a lot more pressure.
Right. And so how long would you say it took to record the whole thing?
I would say 3.5 months.
That's not really that good.
And then it's then we record a whole weekend, and then we just do evenings, or then we just do. It's not 3 months in a row every day in the studio. It's scattered all over the 3 months.
So tell us a little bit now about, that cover, the album cover and the artist.
I can tell you that this was not the original idea we had for the cover. Mm-hmm. We had a whole different thing in mind, and we got a model out from Germany, who's also in the video of Womb of Thorns. Mm-hmm. And we shot pictures and did this whole thing, and then like 3 weeks before the deadline, the whole idea fell through. So we had to come up with something fitting, and not only fitting to what I had in mind for the overall theme that covers the album, but also the music. Everything has to come together for me. When you hold the album in your hand and you see the cover, it has to make sense that that's the cover, guiding the music and the lyrics. And I follow Nono Limme, who is the photographer of this cover, on Instagram, and for some reason I immediately thought of her and went like, okay, let's see what she has, in her in all her art. Mm-hmm. At one point we came across this picture, which is now the cover. And I decided just to contact her and ask her if it was possible and mm-hmm. if we could come to a collaboration on this. And I'm glad we did, because to me this was, this shot of this woman lying there could be so many things.
Right.
And that, again, this is your interpretation that's free, Mm-hmm. And what I see in it, other people might not, but for me it was, okay, this is the album cover. This is even better than what we had in mind, and it really is. What we had in mind couldn't compare to this one. So it was something, how do they say that? It was a good thing that the whole original cover thing didn't went our way.
And it is, like you said, like your music, everything is pretty much open to one's own interpretation of what it all pertains to. But yeah. I think pretty much everybody's interpretation to the album cover definitely pertains to the music inside the album. And Ferry, like you had mentioned, you released a video for Womb of Thorns. So whose idea was the concept for this video? And do you all have input into the process of making it?
Everybody can have an input. Mm-hmm. Not saying that I will listen to them, but no. I had this, the lyrics mean something that was again personal, and I didn't want to put that on screen. So we thought of something else that could replace it some way or another, but was still relatable to the lyrics. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it, and I had the main idea, and then Marco came up with some other suggestions, and that was that has become the script of the if you can speak of a script, that has become the thing to follow for the video.
Yeah, what have been some of the reactions to that video, Ferry?
And I don't really get involved in those things. I don't read comments. I'm not on Facebook. I don't know what's going on as far as those things go. I'm not interested in them also. I mean, if it's positive, it's good. If people are pissed off or negative,
that's good too.
What can you do? Yeah, what can you do?
So Luciferian Tempest also features a guest appearance from Farida Lamucci from The Devil's Blood. So is this the first time that you've had female vocals on your albums, and what drew you to her vocals for this song?
Now, we had female vocals on Summer of Rot, where we have Crown of the Dead is Rianne van Dorst from Doel.
Oh, yep.
She sung on there, and that's the reason why I didn't want any female vocals on this album. I don't like repetitiveness as far as those things go. But while I was finished with writing the music for the track, and I was busy with composing the orchestral parts, and once I put those two together, I could only hear Farida's voice, and I was like, okay, well, fuck it, I'm gonna text her and ask her, and see what she thinks of it. And I got like the same the same hour, I got a text back saying, yeah, I'm up for it. And she didn't even heard the song at that point, so it was good.
And when you finally recorded it with her in it, was that the same thing you were hearing in your head?
No, but I heard no, but I didn't hear any vocal structures. I just heard her voice, her tone of voice. You know, she has this this range and this typical voice that you can pick out of anything if you hear her. Mm-hmm. So for us, it was. We had one day that we got together to record these parts, and we said, yeah, do your thing, you know, it's open. I explained the lyrics to her, what she thought of it, and we agreed on all those things, and she went into the vocal booth and just started singing line after line, and each line was amazing. So it was hard to pick the stuff, so we went with two options.
Well, it came out great. It's very haunting, you know. It's a perfect fit for that song, I think, as well. And so with the album being released, is it going to be released on like all formats? Do you know?
As far as I know, yeah. Okay. CD, LP, all that stuff, and the digital.
And are you guys going to be doing lots of touring this year? Do you know?
Not really, not at the moment. We're just doing festivals and weekenders and some club shows. Touring is a thing which might become a way to promote this album, but at the moment we don't have anything planned.
And if people want to learn more about the band, you know, what you guys have going on, where you're playing, what's like the best sites to do that?
I believe our Facebook site is the main thing for that.
All right, so there you go. AntropomorphiA have a new album, Merciless Savagery, off of Metal Blade Records. We played a few tracks for you tonight. Definitely check the band and their album out. And Ferry, thank you for coming on the show, taking the time to do this interview with us, and all the best on the new album and everything you guys got going on.
Thanks very much, and thanks again for having me.